All right. Welcome, my friend, to the next episode here of the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A, where we take a fundamental approach to fitness to give you more power, control, and freedom over the results you want so you can achieve them easier and, of course, maintain them for long periods of time. As always, I'm Matt Schifferle from the Red Delta Project. Today's episode is sponsored by the RDP Library. All 9 of the books are all down below in the description, all the links, including some of my bestsellers, Micro Workouts, the Grind Style Calisthenics Program, which month 9 for the free program just came out on the RDP YouTube channel, Fitness Independence, Smart Bodyweight Training, and so on. Check those all out down below. They're available in PDF and hardcover and Kindle. PDF is actually on the RDP merch channel. It's not on Amazon, but it's on the RDP merch channel also down below. People coming on in, CJ Watson, Alexis, how you doing? Great to hear from you. Today's episode is going to be a fairly simple one. It's just a collection of things that I've pulled together of overrated and underrated. I've seen this sort of thing on social media a lot, and I've always enjoyed it, where people give their 2 cents on this thing that everybody thinks is so awesome and wonderful and special really isn't so great. Meanwhile, there's something else that often floats right under the radar that nobody's paying attention to, and it's awesome. And this is a very important thing, because one of the things that always frustrates me about our fitness culture is it tends to distract people from the stuff that's most important while trying to direct people's attention, which is your most valuable resource, towards things that really are no big deal. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening is we spend a lot of time and energy and effort and money putting our attention towards things that really probably aren't really that important, while at the same time ignoring the things that are. So this is a little bit of a counter correction in things. Let's jump right into it. Number 1, overrated supplements. Now, I'm usually getting the reputation as being an anti-supplement guy, and nothing could be further from the truth. I think there's nothing at all wrong with taking vitamin pills, whey protein, and so forth. It's fine. I don't have anti-supplement bias to it at all. But I don't think there's anything special about it either. The reason for this is because supplements don't give us anything special. They don't bring anything to the table that you don't automatically get with food. They're a refined, processed food product that focuses on bringing some sort of nutritional element into our diet that makes it easier to consume, which can be great. If you need to get more iron or a certain vitamin or a protein or something in your diet, it could be a very quick and efficient way to do it. But there's nothing special about it. There's nothing unique. There's no advantages to it other than that type of convenience. And that may be reason enough to have a protein shake in the morning or take some creatine or a vitamin pill. That's great. But you're not going to get anything above and beyond what you would get if you just had more of that nutrient from regular food. And in my 2 cents, you're just going to get more from food in general, because like I said, supplements are a refined, processed product, which doesn't make them bad. It just means that you've taken some sort of holistic, natural, tasty, enjoyable thing and stripped all of that stuff out and said, let's just make sure you're getting protein and get rid of all the other good stuff there. It's just taking so much of the good stuff out, versus if you sit down to a nice, wholesome meal, you're getting the same thing as far as your nutrients go, but you're also getting all those other satisfying factors, which is why the underrated value and component that I find out there are cooking skills. Now, I'm not saying you got to be like a 3-star Michelin chef or anything like that, but one of the things that I've noticed about people who have a very consistent diet for health and weight management and so on, these are also individuals who are very comfortable preparing food in the kitchen. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the services out there are even handicapping this further. Coupled with supplements is the meal prep services that are out there. It seems all over the place, like meal prep, meal services, things like meal delivery preparation, things like a Blue Apron and stuff like that. Also great, not bad, but dude, if you're gonna order food, just order food. I would just rather go DoorDash and just have something delivered. But learning to prepare your own food is a huge asset in having a healthier diet. Because always remember, there's only 3 things you need to control about your diet: is what are you eating, roughly when are you eating, and how much are you eating. And you have so much more control over all 3 of those things when you are preparing your own food. Now, I'm no high-end cook or chef myself, but one of the best things I definitely ever did about controlling and getting more of a harness on my own diet and my health was just learning basic cooking skills. And things like how to properly prepare pasta or rice, how to be able to make very basic casseroles, and cooking steak and fish and all these sorts of things. It makes such a big difference. It also can save you a ton of money, because all these products and food services and stuff are going to be much more expensive than if you just had the basic staple ingredients that you got from the grocery store and you prepared it. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't have time and everything. Don't worry about it, because you're actually going to save a lot of time, especially if you cook in bulk. It's just me living here in my apartment, and I've learned that whenever I'm cooking something, I'll cook at least 3 or 4 serving sizes of whatever I'm preparing. And so then I just put it in containers, and nothing is going to be quicker than heat and eat. And that's better than fast food. That's better than ordering out and so on. You come home after a long day at the office, just pop stuff in the oven or microwave and stuff, and you got dinner 5 minutes later. So don't discredit the ability to prepare your own food. It is by far one of the most underrated and important things you can do towards having a healthier diet. All right, let's get to some of these questions here. People are streaming on in. It's so good to hear from you. Folks, Gatsu, good to see you again, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Hey, Matt, I don't really have a diet, as I see so much about getting tons of protein every day. But the more I look, the more I realize that the most important part is the workouts that build muscle. And you're absolutely right, my friend. When it comes down to building muscle, it is the mechanical tension, the demand on the muscle that creates the stimulus for growth. The stimulus that tells your muscles to get bigger and stronger does not come from food. I know a lot of people are like, but leucine, that kicks off protein synthesis. Yes, it does, but there's no reason for the muscle to get bigger beyond that protein synthesis. Remember, protein synthesis happens all the time, every single day. What we need is an acceleration of it in order to stimulate more growth. And the only way you can create that is through the mechanical resistance of strength training. It's the only way. You cannot create that stimulus from a protein. That's not to say diet's not important. Absolutely, it's supportive. But that's kind of like saying, oh, I put adequate gasoline in my car, so now I know how to get to the airport. It's like, no, you need the gas, yes, but you get to the airport because you go to the airport. It's the exact same thing. You have to direct it. You're absolutely true. All right, let's see what else can we get. One more question here before we get to the next one. That's a long username. Holy smokes. That would win big time on a Scrabble board, let me tell you. Can I base good workout doing one set of push-pull legs 3 days a week? Oh, yeah. So you can definitely do that, but always remember that the less work you do, the more you've got to get that sucker dialed in to what you need it to do. But don't get too much, and I'll get into this in a little bit. An overrated thing is how much work you do. How much exercise you do is way overrated, way. And some people are like, you got to do this much, or some people say you got to do this little bit and stuff. How much exercise you do really isn't that important. It's much more important to do something else, which I'll get to in a second, because you can get a ton of exercise and largely waste your time. You can also have a relatively small amount of exercise, like one set, and get great results. But it depends on the application and what you're doing, not the amount that you do. Okay, so let's go right into a little bit of some equipment stuff. Overrated, the barbell. Lots and lots of overrated stuff on the barbell. You know, how much you bench, how much you squat, that sort of thing. You know, the barbell is all over in our fitness culture. You got every CrossFit logo has barbells that are crossed and everything. People have barbells and plates tattooed on their foreheads and stuff. People love the barbell because it's impressive in the numbers. It's also a standardized piece of equipment. So if someone's like, how much do you bench? We all know what a bench press is. We know it's a standard 7-foot, 45-pound bar. We know how big the plates are. We know roughly the size of the bench. So it's a standardized piece of equipment, which is why everybody always wants to compare the numbers. Nobody's going to say, how much can you leg press Techno Gym? Because it's not a standard piece of equipment. Therefore, nobody cares. Overrated, right? Not to say it's bad, but it's overrated. Underrated, dumbbells. I don't understand why people don't love dumbbells. People get gaga over barbells, kettlebells, anything that's really unusual. People are great about it. But dude, when I was selling fitness equipment, one of the most important things I ever learned, especially for setting up a home gym, my boss was like, always start off with dumbbells. You can do everything with dumbbells. There's not a single movement pattern that you can't replicate free weight wise with dumbbells. Plus you get unilateral action, which is a little harder to get with a barbell. You can get things like chest flies and all those other sorts of things. You get so much more versatility from dumbbells, and it's typically a lot easier on the joints, and you can manipulate it for different ways as far as like angles in your hands and rotations and other things like that. So generally, whenever someone's looking to get into free weight work, I always direct them towards dumbbells first and foremost. And then if you want to explore some specialized things with barbells, that's great. But personally, like a lot of times when I'm working with clients in the regular gym, not the bodyweight gym, but the regular gym, it's almost always going to be some sort of dumbbell work, partially because it's a lot quicker and easier to set up as well. We don't need to wait for a squat rack. We don't need to have a certain amount of space on the floor and stuff. It's much easier to move the dumbbells outside so we can work out outside. Dumbbells, highly underrated. Barbell is usually a bit more on the overrated side, in my opinion. Let's get to some more questions. Andre is saying, Matt, could you talk about proximity to failure in strength and hypertrophy workouts and training? How close to failure or fatigue should we take our working sets? Oh, very good. So actually, let me jump right into this one. Highly overrated, going to failure. Underrated is pushing for, let me see how I can phrase this. Maintaining technical proficiency under fatigue. How does that sound, right? In other words, instead of going until you can't lift anymore, how good can you maintain your technique as you get fatigued? So that's why I'm always saying to people, it's like, okay, do 10 repetitions of an exercise, let's say pull-ups. Now, how good is that 10th pull-up? That's what we want to be looking at. I don't care if you get 10 pull-ups to failure when that last pull-up looks like you're flopping like a fish on the end of a hook and you're kicking around and it's half the range of motion and you're just kind of jerking around. The technique sucks. So this is why I'm always saying that failure is by and large for most people very subjective. The idea out there is that there's this definitive line and failure is an objective thing. It's when you can no longer do something and stuff, but it's much more subjective than we think it is. I've experienced way too many instances where someone will be like, oh yeah, I did 10 pull-ups, totally went to failure. That's all I had and everything. And then something will change about their circumstances. Their gym crush walks through the room, or a coach is suddenly looking at them or something, and they'll bust out 13 reps. I'm like, dude, what the hell? I thought you said 10 reps was your max. You just got 13. So many things like this happen over and over and over. Plus, remember that failure is something that is always relative to the exercise itself. So you could have like a barbell, for example, you're doing curls with 65 pounds, and then you're like, okay, I can't do anymore. And then you take the 10s off and then you keep curling. You didn't reach muscular failure per se. You just reached failure for that exercise at that level of resistance with that technique. It's always very, very, very subjective. Okay, lecture over. The reason why I say that is because I don't want people to get too much into this idea of failure, because I would bet 9 times out of 10, when people have the idea of failure in their head, they're putting up an artificial limitation to their performance. They're telling themselves, this is all I can do. This is as hard as I can push. This is how many reps I can do, when in reality, that's not as hard as they can go. That's not all that they can do. They could have gone further. They could have exceeded that, but they're literally telling themselves, I can't do it. And that's why I usually don't like the word failure. So instead of going to failure, my goal is always, let's see how well you can do the exercise for these many repetitions. All right. So in 10 pull-ups, it's like, okay, you got 10 pull-ups, but those last 2 were nothing to write home about. In fact, I would just classify them as, they're not pull-ups. They're just cries for help. They're pathetic. You should be ashamed of yourself, maggot. You know, it's my inner drill sergeant coming through. So it's not about doing them until you can. It's like, let's do those pull-ups, but make sure on those last 2, or hell, let's say you're tired and you're like, now I can only do 8. I don't care. Do 8 then, but keep your body locked in, get that full range of motion, get your chest to the bar and stuff. And they're like really, really grinding out the rep, and they get just barely get their chest to the bar, and they keep in good technique. I'm like, that I applaud. Very good. I don't care if you're going to failure. I don't care if you're going until you can't do it anymore. I care about how well you can do the exercise, because like other things, I mean, you're never going to have that in any other sport. right? Tennis is going on right now. You're never going to have a tennis player. It's like, dude, I was practicing my backhand until I collapsed on the court. Okay, great. But whoop-de frickin' da. How good is your backhand? How good are you at playing tennis? That's what matters. No one is going to give you a trophy because of how hard you work. How good are you at tennis? Same thing with exercise. I care about how good are your push-ups? How good are your pull-ups? How good are you at doing squats? And that's what we're really testing under fatigue. When you become more fatigued, you are literally challenging your proficiency of the exercise. And if you can improve your proficiency under fatigue, that's what's most important for the strength and the muscle and the hypertrophy and all that other sorts of things. Hopefully that made sense. It made sense in my own mind kind of thing. But we're always here to challenge how well we can work. Not just, I went to failure. I'm like, yeah, la-di-da. That doesn't tell me anything. Oh, yeah, totally agree here. Cake first. Love that screen name. Dumbbells are great. Goblet squat is a favorite for me. Oh, yeah, goblet squat is terribly underrated. Everybody's all about barbell back squats and stuff like that. And I very rarely see good barbell back squats in the gym. It's a very rare occurrence to see a good barbell back squat. But goblet squats, oh man, those things are gorgeous. You could take someone with the worst squat technique, give them a goblet squat with a little bit of instruction, they'll be squatting way better than before, and they'll probably get better results. Joseph Bello, hey man, I do a 30-40 minute full body workout routine, very good, with my body weight circa 3 days a week, but I feel like I'm not getting the results I want. So again, look at what you're doing in the routine. I don't care what your routine is. So that's the next one, actually. Overrated workout routine. Workout routine, highly overrated. You know, people are like, what routine should I follow? Should I do this routine, that routine, this? Honestly, I don't think it matters very much. Honestly, seriously, I do not think your workout routine really matters. Remember, because there's only two fundamental objectives of a good workout routine. What can you stick to? And is it pointing you roughly in the right direction? Like, are you doing the right type of exercise? Like, don't come to me saying, I want bigger arms, and your workout routine has you running 20 miles a week, and that's your workout routine. But that stuff is fairly obvious, right? If you've got those two things, your workout routine's as good as it's going to get. So I really don't think it matters very much what your routine is. What does matter is whether or not you're accomplishing the objective of your exercise. That's what I talk about in my book, Micro Workouts. The routine does not get you results, my friends. I don't care if it's once a week, every single day, you work a 1 set, 10 sets, split routine, whole body, push-ups versus bench press, does not really matter. It honestly doesn't. What does matter is, are you getting the objectives of the workout in? Are you burning the calories? Objective number one. Are you creating time under tension for the muscles? Or basically, are you working the muscles progressively harder over time for strength and hypertrophy? Or are you just getting more proficient at how good you are at doing the activity at choice? That's a performance thing. Those are the three objectives of a workout. Work out however you see fit to make that happen. You know, it's going to be pretty obvious. Like, I can't work out every day. I can't, twice a week is all I can manage. Great, then do it twice a week. Oh, I could practice push-ups every day. Then do them every day. Whatever. You know, it's going to be all about how can you do this thing better. So we always want to look at that. Again, as a martial artist, I go to Taekwondo twice a week. Now, I can go to Taekwondo like I did when I was a little kid. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm punching, I'm kicking. Okay, whatever. Yeah. When can I test? Like, dude, you still suck, but I've been going twice a week. Doesn't matter. But then I started to get through my thick skull. It's like, oh, I actually have to get better at punching. Then I became better. The workload was the same. The workout routine is the same. So routines, highly overrated. You're not going to get successful because of your routine. You get successful because you start kicking ass in push-ups. You get really good at doing pull-ups. And you can do them any way that you like. Do them however you want. Seriously, it's like, I don't like doing it this way. I want to do it the other way. Then great, do it that way. Let's go over another one. Overrated workout apps and technology. Everybody's got a workout app these days. And these days I've got companies all the time saying, oh, you can make your own workout app and make all this passive income and stuff. It's like an email inbox gets flooded with these things every single day. And I tried turning my GSC program into a workout app on several services, and I couldn't make it work. It just didn't work because there's too many phases with the GSC program. It doesn't work with a standard, just do this many sets and reps kind of thing, follow along sort of idea. And I don't know anybody who's gotten in shape from a workout app. Maybe a tracker, for that sort of thing, like just a basic workout tracker. But workout apps, highly overrated. But the things that are underrated is just a simple basic workout log. Go to reddeltaproject.com, get my free ebook on the scoreboard progression log. It's my simple, very easy to use workout progression log, because a workout progression log is literally a GPS for your results. It's saying, this is what you've done. Now here's what you do next. That's literally what a workout log is. And it gives you complete freedom and autonomy to work out and train however the heck you want. You don't have to follow some sort of a program. You get to do anything you like, set up the program however you like. But the workout log, just the act of keeping a log, puts you in that mindset of, what have I done? Now, what do I need to do to make it better? And I talk about that in that ebook for the scoreboard progression log. It's just make a little note of like, make sure you're getting chest to bar and pull-ups. Great. So next time you work out, like, remember, chest to bar for pull-ups. Okay, good. Just that will be the ticket to making progress and improvement and getting results. It's the smallest little thing, but it's all you need. Now, unless you're getting that from your workout app saying, oh, remember you did it this way last time, now here's how you improve it, then your workout app is just kind of telling you what to do, but there's no direction to it. Remember, that's what a good workout routine is. Two things. You got to be able to sustain it, and you need to have direction in the way you want to go towards your goals. If a program app doesn't give you direction and it just tells you what to do, then it's no different than just blind guessing as far as what you're trying to do for the program. So it's one of those things on simple workout logs, pen and paper if you want to do it that way. I just keep it on my phone. It's not too complicated for that as well. All right, let's see what else we got. Workout routines, I already addressed. Workout routines, highly overrated. Just do whatever the hell you want. And basically, as long as you're getting the work done within a week or so, it's good. That's a long time. A lot of the research has shown it's like, look, as long as you've got a bulk of work and then you just get it done somehow, that's all that really matters. It's kind of like my friend used to have a job working in a tech company, and it was very, very free. And his boss was literally like, look, this is the project you have. This is the deadline. He's like, I don't care how you get it done. He's like, work 12 hours a day, take 5 days off, go on vacation, work remote. He's like, I don't care what you do or how you work or how many hours you're working in the office or whatever. Just get this done by this deadline. That's all I need from you. And you can do it however the hell you want. And he was very productive with that because it was able to fit the work within his schedule. Same thing with working out. It's like, have a general amount of work that you want to do, usually about 50 repetitions, good repetitions per muscle group per week, let's say. I'm just spitballing here. And you just break it up however you want, however you like to do it. And you're going to probably find the ways that are going to work best for you in that regard. Let's see what else we can answer for folks. Dreamer's asking, hey, Matt, might be a weird question. I love weird questions. But are all wrist bones roughly the same size? Is the reason some people might have bigger wrists or because of fat or muscle beneath their wrists? No, absolutely not. Remember, bone structure, body size is very, very different from one person to the next. We do have different body types. And this part of the body does not change a whole lot per exercise and weight issues. I mean, unless you're gaining a lot of body fat, the wrist diameter you have is pretty much set in stone. When I was big time into rock climbing one winter, my forearms blew up like Popeye. Wrist, exactly the same size. Nothing here, because there's really nothing here to grow. There's not a whole lot of muscle here. There's a small muscle that has a diagonal pennation in your between your radialis and your ulna, but it doesn't grow very much unless you're like rotating your wrist against heavy resistance, like a serious strength exercise. I wouldn't expect much growth out of that. So for the most part, your wrist is going to be the size it is, and it's going to be different from one person to the next. And that's kind of the way it's going to be. All right. Let's see. What else can we get? Oh, one more here. CJ Watson. Good to see you, CJ. Hey, Matt, what's your opinion on spinal engine theory? No idea. Never even heard of it. Send me a link so I can investigate more. But dude, anything about the spine is probably going to be on the right track because everything goes through the spine. Paul Wade, when he wrote Convict Conditioning 1, talked a lot about bridge work, about how the importance of the spine and your central nervous system partially runs through your spine. And there's a reason why chiropractors exist. I went and got some very serious chiropractic work done last year, and it saved my career because of the work done on the spine. So typically anything that's about conditioning the muscles along the spine and making sure you have good alignment and use of the spine is probably going to be a very good thing, because most of us are completely neglecting that sort of thing. All right, let's get to some more things. Overrated. Muscle ups. An overrated exercise, in my opinion. It's a pull-up and a dip that's connected together, but the hardest part of it is the connection. So that's what you're training, essentially, is the ability to transition from a pull-up to a dip. And honestly, I don't care about being able to transition between the two, so why would I do it? I want to build muscle. I want to build strength. The muscle up is in no way necessary for that sort of thing. And if you actually ask me, like, I want to build up my back, biceps, and chest and triceps, I would give you those two exercises separate, because you're probably going to challenge those movement patterns and tax them to a much higher degree when you don't have to connect them. They're fun, they're great, they're very impressive, but use the muscle up as an objective when your goal is to do muscle ups, not building muscle and strength and stuff, which may be slightly mitigated instead of just classic pull and dip training. And the underrated aspect of it is progressive push-ups and rows, where you have more weight on one arm versus the other. It's something I do not see nearly enough of. I do not see people doing it very much, especially in the calisthenics world. Everybody gets stuck in the calisthenics rut. Bilateral movements where the hands are doing, both arms are doing the same thing with a 50-50 weight distribution. It's fine, but remember, my friends, that when it comes to progressive and suspension calisthenics, that we advance and make ourselves stronger through progressive technique. So if we stick to one basic type of technique, that's kind of like sticking with one weight in the gym. It's like, yep, benching 135. And, 6 months later, what are you benching? Still 135, but I'm up to 50 reps. Like, okay, but dude, you can add weight. Like, you want to get stronger, don't you? It's like, yeah. Now I'm trying to get 60 reps. No, add weight. The point of this is you got to get stronger. You got to work against heavier resistance. Same thing with push-ups. Like, I'll do this as a warm-up or as a drop set and stuff, but whenever I'm doing push-ups, it's almost always archer style. More weight is on one side. That is my standard push-up. If I'm doing push-ups for the day, you're going to find me doing archer style push-ups because I want more weight on my arms. I don't want to do this for endless repetitions. It doesn't make sense. It's not in alignment with my goals. It would be a waste of my time to just endlessly do repetitions with light weight. All right, next questions here. We got Andre. It's good to see you as always. Matt, how often should we try to progress? When should we just focus on repeating the last performance? Sometimes I feel like I'm forcing progressive overload. Hope I can make myself understandable. Oh yeah, I get it. Totally what you're saying. Very good question. So my thing is progress whenever you can. And always remember, progression, especially as you get more advanced, isn't going to come from weight and reps. In the classic progression that we think, it's going to come from improving technique, improving tension control, improving body position, improving speed, power, tempo, range of motion. Again, a lot of your ability to get what you want is going to come from how well do you do the exercise. Whenever you see guys in the gym who have a lot of strength or a really well-developed physique, almost without exception, you'll find someone who's really, really, really freaking good at doing the exercise. You just watch them, and it doesn't matter if they're doing it with lightweight. It doesn't matter if they're only doing a few repetitions as like a warm-up. You just watch them, and you're like, damn, that guy is really good at pull-ups because of the control they have, the power, the strength. You can just feel the energy radiating off of them as they do the repetitions. That's what we get most of our progression from, especially as we get more advanced. The weight and the reps and all of that stuff comes from that kind of progression. You're not going to progress by adding weight and reps. You add weight and reps because you've progressed. It's not a chicken or the egg sort of thing. You progress first in your ability to do the exercise, then you can add stuff. So I would propose that if you feel like you're kind of forcing it a little bit, you may want to examine whether or not you're doing weight or adding the reps when you really should, instead going a little bit more for that kind of proficiency. With that said, yeah, definitely, progress whenever you like. There's no linear model for progression. You hear things like that all the time of you should be adding these many reps per week, or you should be adding 5 pounds to the bar every 2 weeks, or whatever kind of thing. It's pure guesswork. It's very arbitrary rules. You could be on the same weight or the same technique for months, and you're still making progress because you're working how well you can do that. Or you could be like, okay, I was doing, like, I've got a guy right now who's just making crazy progress. And I was like, yeah, you were doing pull-ups on the assisted pull-up machine. You were at 60 pounds of assistance, and well, now you're at 40. He's like, that's kind of quick to progress. And you're like, well, oh, you're ready for it. Let's go. It's like there's no need to like hold yourself back. His technique is strong. He's improving like crazy. He's just getting those beginner gains. And I'm like, dude, if you're ready to go, let's go. No need to hold back. So progress as you can, but remember that most of your progression is going to come from proficiency, not just the weight and repetitions. And proficiency and progression is something we should always be striving for every rep, every set, and every workout of every workout. I think I was a little redundant there. Sorry about that. JSM asking, what are the benefits from bands versus bells? Which should we privilege? I've never been a huge band fan just because it's got that resistance curve to it, but it's more portable. I always just say use the tools, whatever you've got and whatever you just like to use. A lot of the exercise selection out there largely just depends on personal preference. I was talking about dumbbells earlier, but if someone's like, dude, I just love using the barbell overhead press, I'm almost always going to prioritize being able to use dumbbells with a press because it's unilateral, we get rotation. But if you came to me and you're like, I just love the overhead press with a barbell, I'm like, okay, great, we'll do a barbell then, whatever. It really isn't that important because fundamentally you're doing the same thing either way. All right. Let's see what else we got. Muscle ups I talked. Okay, next, overrated trackers. Tracking is a big thing these days. You got all sorts of trackers, Fitbits, you got the smartwatches, you've got all sorts of things out there. You breathe into it. It's like monitor your metabolism, monitor your blood sugar level, monitor this, monitor that, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of this is terribly overrated, largely because what it's doing is collecting data. It's giving you some sort of data about what's going on. And the reason why this can be a little bit tricky is because, one, I know a lot of people, they have, I've got a couple of people I'm training and they literally have 2 trackers on them when they're working out. They've got like a Lumen thing, they've got a Oura ring, they've got a smartwatch, they've got like all this electronic equipment. They're like turning into the bionic man, and they got all this data. But when I ask them, what are you doing with the data? They're like, it's just good to know this stuff. No. Remember, data is only useful if it helps you make better decisions. So if you plug the device in and you get the graphs and everything, and you're like, okay, looking at this data, I need to change this about my diet. I need to change this about my exercise or this about my workout. Then it's useful. But if you're not using the data to make better decisions, it's just a form of entertainment. It's just that's kind of cool. Imagine that. Or posting on social media, guys, check this stat out or whatever. But if you're not using it to make better choices and decisions, it's not doing you any good. It's not going to actually improve anything because you're going to get improvement by making better decisions and forming better habits. And that's what that data is there for. And if you're not using it for that, then it's largely a waste of your time. Or it's just entertainment, like, oh, it's just kind of interesting, and that's fine. But it's not going to make you healthier or leaner or fitter or stronger in any way, shape, or form. And last but not least is a lot of times the information and that data coming from those trackers is brought on by estimation, algorithms, all these sorts of things. It's not nearly as accurate as we would like to often think it is. So it can be roughly a guessing moonshot of an estimation at best. Plus, it doesn't necessarily give us the whole picture. It's one piece of data that could be informative, but there's a million other things we also need to take into context when it comes to the greater picture of whether or not we're losing weight and building muscle and all these other sorts of things. So in my opinion, it's just an expensive way to get very little information that most people don't do anything with. But the underrated thing is more along the lines of self-assessment. And what I basically mean by that is paying attention to just your assessment of what's going on. How do you feel? What's your energy level like? What are you doing that's better about this workout? Like, let's say you had a really good workout today. You're like, dude, that was an awesome workout. I crushed it and smashed it and bashed it and trashed it. It was awesome. Yeah, good. Why? Why was this a great workout? Because remember last week at this time, you had a terrible workout. What was different? What was the differentiating factor? And can you do something about that? Because if you do, then you could be like, oh yeah, that last workout was terrible because I changed this about my warm up and I didn't get a good night's sleep and I did this and I did that. And my mind was all, okay, good. Now address those things because that's the stuff that's going to make all the difference in the world. And this self-assessment, I think, is a dying off quality for a lot of folks, especially in the modern world, because we're kind of getting lured into this idea that technology is going to save us. The internet's going to tell us everything we need. These trackers are going to tell us everything we need to know. Not even close. And yet, a lot of time, coming from a Asian studies background in Japanese culture, a lot of the disciplines that I learned in Japanese culture were very big on this self-assessment sort of thing. Like when I was a taiko drummer, especially in Japan, they would be like, okay, you are playing this piece wrong. And I'd be like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And they're like, you're doing it this way. Bum, 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 bum. We need you to do it this way. Bum, 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 bum. And be like, what's the difference? And be like, okay, listen again. Bum, 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 bum versus what we need. Bum, 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 bum. And I'm like, there's no difference. What's the difference? And they'd keep doing this. I'd be like, just freaking tell me what I need to do wrong. But what they were trying to do is like, you have to be able to self-assess and know what you're doing in order to fix it. You have to know for yourself, because a lot of times in life, you're not going to have someone telling you what you need to fix. The internet's not going to solve all your problems. Data trackers aren't going to give you all the information you need to know. You're going to have a lot of introspection, self-assessment, and self-analysis. And that's one of the reasons why workout logs are so great, because you literally sit down and be like, why was that? Okay, I just got 15 pull-ups and I usually don't get that many. Why was that there? What did I do? Because that skill of self-assessment will give you the answers you actually need. And it makes you better at finding those answers and then improving your progress over time. So trackers are fun for entertainment and a little bit of data points and stuff, but self-assessment is really where it's on out. All right. Let's see what other questions I can get to here. Oh, questions coming fast and furious, folks. All right, one finger push-up. What are your thoughts on high rep body weight squats? For what? So always, it's just keep in mind to the fundamentals. Yeah, high repetition means lightweight and endurance, power, speed, and practicing the technique. That's what you're developing. Whether or not that's important to you, that's up to you. That's the sort of thing to assess for you. So always remember that when it comes to the programming and stuff, it's all in context of what are you trying to get out of it? What qualities are you trying to develop? Are you trying to improve your proficiency in the exercise? In which case you should have in your mind, what are you trying to improve? Like, I'm trying to open up my hips in the bottom of the squat. Great. Now you can improve that. Don't just go through the repetitions. There's nothing magical about how many reps you can do. You're just reinforcing whatever you do. If you have the worst form in the world, you're going to reinforce the worst form in the world, kind of thing. And if you want to improve your stamina versus your intensity, then you've got to either go heavier or lighter, depending on what you want. But high rep squats are great for being able to do high rep squats. Why is that important to you? And that's an answer only you can give, because it might be very good. But what are the qualities of that type of training? And then doing it for those qualities. It's not about the numbers. All right, let's see. Steve is asking, Hey, Matt, thoughts on including the gait as a fundamental movement in one's calisthenics, like push-ups, pull-ups, squats, including variations like walks, weighted walks, sled, hill, sprints, et cetera, et cetera. Very good observation, Steve. Generally, anything with the legs I typically use as a squat chain movement pattern. In my world as a cyclist, pedaling is a lighter form of squatting. Same thing with going uphill. If you're ever out here in Denver, folks, hit me up. I'll take you down to the Manitou Incline or the Mini Incline in Castle Rock, and it'll totally kick your ass. And you're basically just alternating single leg squats all the way up as your heart feels like it's going to explode out of your chest. So typically lower body stuff like that, I just consider squat chain stuff. And to a large degree, when you're using your legs, it shouldn't feel that different from squats. If you're doing squats and your legs feel a certain way, you should feel like you're using your legs in a very similar way when you are walking and running and things like that. And if it's totally different, then that's an opportunity to explore, why are you using your legs differently? Like you could be doing a hamstring sprint or sprints and be like, dude, it's all in my glutes and hamstrings. Good. And then you go do lunges and you're like, I don't feel it at all in my hamstrings. I'm like, well, why not? Lunges are just exaggerated steps. How come you're using your legs differently? Always remember, the exercise does not work your muscles. You work your muscles to do the exercise. If the muscle use and activation is up to you, not the exercise. Don't leave it to be passive. Don't let it just happen by chance. Okay, so I was talking about supplements earlier. Christino is asking, is creatine worth it? Maybe not. Kind of hard to say with that one, but that's why I always tell people, just give it a shot, because creatine doesn't do anything special. Your body automatically resynthesizes and tops off your muscles with creatine that you need. It's just speeding up that process. Like any supplement, it doesn't do anything different or unusual. It just potentially speeds things up, and maybe that'll help give you that little itty bitty tiny itsy bitsy little more for, one more repetition that can add up over time. Or maybe not. A lot of people I really do believe don't really train all that hard to really need it, but give it a shot. It's like $11 a bottle or something like that, and it's perfectly fine and safe to use. So give it a shot, see what happens. Probably not much, but considering it's such a cheap thing to purchase, it's worth a shot, worth a try. All right, trackers overrated. That's why I already got discussion here. Let's go into some scary things that people have a lot of fear mongering around, shall we? So another overrated thing, inflammation. Lots of stuff out there about inflammation, especially a lot of dietary stuff like, I avoid inflammation. I have low inflammation diets and stuff. I do this to not cause inflammation and things like that. Like a lot of things in fitness, I think this is a lot of fear mongering over just normal everyday stuff. Yes, of course, inflammation can be extremely problematic, but it's probably not nearly as much of a problem as we often think it is. I always think of a friend of mine who had way high inflammatory markers one time. I was out on a cruise with a friend of mine, and she went out and did some sort of excursion or something. She was on a kayak, and she was on the water, sunny and everything, and she didn't use sunscreen. And she got severe sunburn. And she actually ended up having to be in the ship's hospital ward for several days afterwards because her inflammatory markers were through the roof because she had such a large amount of damage from the UV rays. And so when people are like, I'm trying to keep off, inflammation and stuff like that, it's like, unless you're in the hospital, it's probably not something you have to worry too much about because inflammation is like a lot of things. You're always going to have it. It's always triggered by something, anything. A lot of the stuff that's out there trying to solve inflammation, like, okay, don't eat these foods. These are inflammatory foods. Dude, all foods are inflammatory if you eat enough of them. Anything can cause inflammation. It's very, very confusing too. You talk to like the paleo crowd and they're like, no grains and plant-based foods and stuff, that's inflammatory. And then you go and talk to the vegans and they're like, no animal products, that's inflammatory. And it's like, will you two get your story straight and then come back to me when you figure this whole thing out? Because according to each of you, both of you should be inflamed up to the nines here. So inflammation is one of those things that by and large, our body can handle just fine. Your body has a ton of ways to handle it very well. It's always going to happen. Fitness is by nature a fairly inflammatory activity. I never quite understood the whole thing, especially like back in my old CrossFit days where people were like, inflammation is the enemy here. Don't eat your beans. And then they would go and destroy themselves in an AMRAP and they can barely walk for 3 days. Like, why do you think your legs are sore? No, it's not lactic acid. It's inflammation. You're avoiding it one way and then purposely getting as much as you can another way. It doesn't make sense here, folks. So yes, inflammation can be problematic, but no, you're not going to be able to protect yourself against it just because you don't eat certain foods. And no, it's not something that is always bad. In fact, a lot of times inflammation may be one of the kickstarters for a lot of the adaptive qualities in the body. Some of the evidence out there suggests that anti-inflammatory things like taking ice baths and ibuprofen and stuff can actually mitigate the stimulus for building muscle. So there's some theory and evidence suggesting that inflammation may play a helpful role in helping the body build itself up. So it's still a little all over the place, but again, I'm not like worried about it. I'm not going to be terribly stressing out over inflammation, nor am I doing anything to try and get as little of it as possible throughout my life. My body can handle it just fine. However, the underrated thing is recovery and stress relief. I find a lot of people do not handle or bring about nearly enough recovery and stress relief into their lives. And I'm talking mental, emotional stress relief as well. You've got one person who's like, I'm never going to eat that bagel that's inflammatory, and yet they'll work themselves to death for 16 hours a day. Like, you're trying to avoid a tiny little inflammatory marker, maybe kind of possibly, to something that is going to leave you with definitely a lot of stress in your body and potentially a ton of inflammatory markers because you're working yourself to death. So give yourself plenty of recovery. And most of the recovery, no, I'm not talking about ice baths and other fancy things. I'm talking sleep. Get lots of sleep. If there's anything that's going to speed up your recovery, sleep is by far the biggest thing out there. And also taking time off, mental recovery, going out for walks, spending time with friends. I had a great time with a friend of mine last night, and it was one of those just wonderful evenings. We went to a new sushi restaurant, and we were just having fun, and we were laughing, and it was great. And I woke up this morning, and I was like, that was just one of those great all-around nights where it's just everything was fun and perfect and wonderful. And it's like, I felt like I kind of needed that sort of thing. And I feel amazing today because we had that fantastic evening. So recovery and stress relief, and don't worry too much about the whole inflammation thing. All right, what else can we go here? CJ Watson, what's your view on swinging club bells? Is the juice worth the squeeze? I don't know enough about club bells to really know much about it. Here's the thing that I will say about specialized equipment, though. Sandbags, kettlebells, club bells, that sort of thing. Like I took the RKC certification course through Dragon Door and everything. When you get a lot of specialized equipment like that, you're typically going to find that there's 2, maybe 3 exercises that piece of equipment is really, really good for. Like the kettlebell, the swing, for example. It's just really good for swings and stuff. There are some exercises that it's like, sure, you can do it if you like like kettlebell press, kettlebell rows and stuff. Like, yeah, you can do it. I don't think there's too much of a difference between that and like a dumbbell or something, but it's good. It's fine. And then there are other things, and it's like, you could do it, but I don't really think it's like really what that tool is for. It's kind of like hammering a nail with a screwdriver. Yeah, you could kind of do it, but it's not really the tool for the job. So I see people like trying to do, kettlebell bench presses and stuff, and they lean back and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of do it, but you're probably better off using other tools. So same thing with club bells. The reason why I mentioned this is what are like the 1 or 2 major club bell exercises? Probably something to do with, rotations and swings and things like that. What are those? That's probably where you're going to get the bulk of the benefit of using club bells. And then other things, it's like, yeah, it's good, but you're probably also, it's not really any different than using something else. Like you could take a club bell vertically and press it, but is it any real benefit or difference than what you would use any other tool for and stuff? So find those like major exercises that the Club Bell excels at and focus on just using that. And you'll probably get most of what you need from Club Bells and then use other things for other exercises. It doesn't need to be a whole thing in and of itself. All right, next thing is overrated. So I mentioned inflammation before. This is the new one that's coming up that I think is getting widely overrated, which is blood sugar and insulin responses. Same sort of thing. When I first took nutrition back in college, it was like a broken record when we were learning about the basic nutritional components and human physiology of all these enzymes and all these adaptations and all these things. And it's like everything was based around blood sugar. Everything kind of came down to blood sugar, managing and monitoring blood sugar. And the big lesson that came out from that is that you can monitor, you can do all sorts of things to alter and impact and influence the amount of sugar in your blood, from diet to exercise to lifestyle and stuff. All of it can have an influence on that blood sugar. But the bottom line that we learned from the class is that by and large, your body is perfectly fine and well equipped to handle all of it completely on autopilot. You don't really need to do anything to manage it. And I think right now, especially where we've got monitors and trackers, it's like monitor your blood sugar. Unless you're diabetic, this is totally unnecessary, because I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this going like, oh, my blood sugar's up. You know, I just ate this meal, my blood sugar spiked. I'm like, yeah, it will. You're fine. It's supposed to. You're perfectly okay. Or, oh, my blood sugar's down. Again, unless you have some sort of like diabetic issue or something like that, it's nothing you need to worry about. When we have these chronic issues that come about from blood sugar fluctuations, we're talking about chronic changes over weeks and months, not what happens for an hour or two after a meal or something, which is what a lot of these trackers regulate. A lot of stuff out there, again, is about diet. Like, oh my gosh, if I eat this white bread, my blood sugar will spike. Yeah, okay, fine. It doesn't matter. You're perfectly fine to do that. Your body is not some fragile porcelain doll that you have to keep things exact, perfect, level, and stable. And you get a little bit, a little spike. Oh, no. Okay, I need to make changes. No, your body can handle a lot of fluctuation. It can handle a lot of change. And it's designed to. It's healthier for doing that. Trying to keep your body in too narrow a range actually can weaken you over time, because our body's adaptability is what makes us strong. It's kind of like people who spend their entire year in very tight, controlled, temperature controlled areas, like in a working environment. And then all it takes is some mild heat or cold and they can't handle it. You know, it's like 50 degrees out and they're freezing, or it's 85 and they're sweating their sock off. But if you have a body that gets exposed to temperature fluctuations, like I can be fine at 10 below zero as long as I've got, my skin covered and stuff, but it's also like 95 degrees outside. And yeah, I get hot, but I'm fine with it, right? So we want these fluctuations and we want our body to be impacted with all of these sorts of things. And blood sugar is the same thing. The more you can get your body to handle blood sugar swings, the better it's going to be to handling these things. And acute changes and swings in blood sugar and insulin response is perfectly fine, it's perfectly healthy, and it doesn't mean anything as far as the negative things that we want to avoid. It's chronic issues that come about, and you're going to have that if you have more extreme things that are detrimental. Like, oh yeah, I live off of Snickers bars. Okay, that's going to be a problem. But having a blood sugar spike because you have a turkey sandwich on white bread because I didn't have whole wheat available at the deli, don't worry about it. You're probably fine. So blood sugar and insulin motions, highly overrated. Unless you have a medical condition, I wouldn't even bother worrying about it too much. But the thing I would pay much more attention to is hunger and satiety cues. So we're making a lot of our dietary decisions off of data. But again, this data, it may not be the most accurate. It may not be very holistic. There may be a lot more things to pay attention to. But at the end of the day, a lot of our decisions are going to come down to how do we feel physically and emotionally. What's our hunger like? What's our satiety like? When do we stop eating? When do you start eating? being more in tune with your hunger and satiety cues is probably going to allow you to eat in the degrees and the frequencies and the portions that are going to be healthiest for you in your circumstances. And you're not going to be able to know that from a tracker. You're not going to be able to really know that from some sort of general recommendation of what kind of foods you should and should not eat. Paying attention to, oh, if I eat these foods this way and stuff, that satisfies my hunger a lot better. Good, go with that. Go off of that information, not whether or not it's going to be potentially, oh, it might do this little thing to my blood sugar. It's like, yeah, big deal. Your body can handle it just fine. There's a lot of fear mongering out there about that sort of thing that I really don't think is very necessary. John Slackingbot, hey Matt, I have an issue with digestion. Because of that, I need to avoid greens, but nuts. Nuts aren't greens. I'm not sure what you mean there, man. So I have FOMO, but I feel better. What do you think? What is it about the greens that you can't eat? So when we talk about greens, I mean, there's lots of different greens out there. And I'm guessing it might be something in there that you're having a sensitivity to. Find out what that is, and then look into what sort of foods, greens don't have as much of that. Also, always remember that food doesn't work in isolation, right? So if you have something that might be problematic, but you combine it with something else, it could be fine. And that's what people often forget about, where it's like, oh, if I eat this thing, it's going to do this response in the body. Well, no, not if you put that white bread in a sandwich. It's not going to have that response because you're combining it with other things. I would look more into that, see if you can find a dietitian who would specialize in that sort of thing for your digestion issue that you're struggling with, and see exactly how you can treat it specifically. You may have too much of an overall approach, saying like the greens, I can't eat the greens. It's like, let's see what about the greens specifically can be addressed. Mr. Dan, Matt, thank you for your time. When do you know exactly you finished your muscle workout when you do an isometric? Whenever, when you're satisfied with it. Always remember, you don't get a result because you finish a workout. There's no finish line. It's not like there's this point where it's like the workout's ineffective, it's ineffective, it's ineffective, this workout's doing nothing, it's doing nothing, and oh, there we go. I crossed this finish line, or I crossed this point, and now it's effective. That is not how it works at all. The second you do something, boom, good, it's doing something, because you're teaching your body how to do something. Right? So the second you start doing it, it's effective. It's that simple. So you're not trying to do it to a certain point. You're trying to do it to do it. So if you're doing it, it's effective. It's not going to be effective because you do it to a certain degree. So the second you start contracting your muscle harder, you're going to teach it to get stronger. Now, a lot of times we're going about the idea of fatigue, though, in a muscle, potentially to stimulate hypertrophy. So if you're pushing hard enough and stuff, that line should be somewhat apparent, especially if you have a quantifiable metric like with the iso chain. If I set an overhead press to like 150 or something, and I'm holding for 10 seconds, 150, good, 10 seconds, 150, and after like 3 or 4 sets, I'll be like, here we go, come on, beep, beep, and I'll get like one beep, and that'll be it. And I'm like, okay, clearly my ability to generate that amount of tension is dropping off, and that's usually when I stop. So that's typically when I tell people, okay, you're done. Doesn't mean it's effective, though. It just means you brought your muscle to a high state of fatigue. But there's a lot of ways you can do that and not have any effect at all. So generally, remember that the point of your exercise is to train your muscles, to practice how well you can do something. And it's going to be effective because you can do it better. You don't get results from hard work. You don't get results by doing it right. You get results through improvement. So that's, again, why we want to keep a log, because we want something telling us, what do I need to do to improve? And if you can do something with improvement, then it's going to be effective. Oh, great. A lot more questions coming in. Let me get a couple more here real quick. Overrated, burning and storing fat. This is something that you hear a lot about there. It's sorry, I'm reading the comments. Adnan is saying avoiding greens is nuts. That's what he was talking about here. Yeah, not Not like nuts as in you eat. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Anyway, burning and storing fat, a lot of stuff out there, right? It's like, oh, do this, you're going to burn fat. This is how you burn fat. And this exercise burns fat. And this is fat burning mode and fat burning engagement and how to be fat adaptation and all that. Or this will make you store fat. And this makes you have lots of more storage fat and makes you store. I don't care about either of those things. Seriously, I don't care if I'm burning fat. I don't care if I'm storing fat. They're completely irrelevant to me. You know, they might say, well, Matt, that's because you don't care about your weight. Of course I care about my weight. I don't want to gain body fat, but that's because burning and storing fat do not control how much fat is on your body. I'm going to say that again. Your ability to lose and manage the fat on your body does not depend on how much you burn or how much you store. It's always the balance between the two. And more importantly, you're always going to store fat no matter what. I don't care what diet you're using. I don't care what you're eating. You will always store fat every single day of your life. And it's not something you can prevent. And same thing with burning fat. You're always going to be burning fat. You're burning fat right now. If you're breathing, you are burning fat. This is what we learned about in Human Physiology 101 back in college. Fat is the primary fuel source for the human body, especially when it's more at rest. I don't worry at all about burning fat and storing fat. They are totally unrelated. They're not important. They're not something you need to worry about. They're not something you have to focus on with either diet or exercise because they're always happening anyway, completely on autopilot. Instead, what we want to do is make sure we're managing the ratios and the balance between the two. And no, you're not going to be able to do that with any particular diet or exercise program. There's always many factors included in that sort of thing. These are not things you have full control over. You can only influence them. And one of the things that I find that's highly underrated that I recommend for people is make sure you're just active on a daily basis. Exercise is such a limited, tightly controlled thing right now. People are like, well, I work out twice a week. It's like, okay. What about the other 5 days of the week kind of thing? The human body was built to be physically active and to be outpouring caloric energy all the time. And of course we are, but to increase that sort of thing. We're not born and built to only be physically active in short, narrow, tight little windows of time sporadically throughout the week. We're built to be active every single day. So being active every day, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing. You go out, walk the dog, play basketball, go out for a walk, get on a hiking trail, walk out to the playground to do some pull-ups, whatever you want to do. But being active on a regular basis is probably far more important for your mind, body, and soul than just focusing on whether or not you're burning fat and whether or not you're storing fat and so on. All right, a couple of last questions, and I'll get to the last overrated, underrated. John slacking back once again saying, Matt, when I train legs, my ribs are getting sore, but not the outer, my tibs, sorry, you said it right, I misjudged. My tibialis are getting sore, but not the outer quad. Are my tibs weaker? My outer quad is not getting enough. Don't worry about it too much. You aren't getting it. You can't like isolate your quads in that regard. Remember, quads are big and they're very strong, so you're probably perfectly fine with that. It very well may be the case that those shin muscles are just not as strong as they need to be. They'll get stronger on their own. Remember, whenever you're doing an exercise and you feel it more in one area, it probably just means that's the weaker point and it'll just get stronger on its own and it'll cease to be a problem in time. So definitely keep that in mind with that. But it's good to feel it in that area. It's good to get those tibialis stronger. All right. Mariano. Hey, Matt, in our culture where food is an axis of gathering with friends and family, is it wrong to offer a healthy menu to guests? Has it happened to you? No, not at all. Definitely, if you've got guests coming and you are providing food, of course, what you provide is a very important thing for their health and well-being. That's one of the things that food fits as a social construct in our life is you're providing for those you care about. You're providing food and you're providing sustenance and stuff. So yeah, definitely healthy options all around for sure. You want to give them things that make them feel good, obviously. So, Yeah, offer plenty of healthy options and stuff. But again, it's very subjective and arbitrary, this idea of healthy. Like, what is healthy? Like, you ask 20 people, you're going to get 20 responses. So just offer whatever you think is a good, well-rounded approach to food. And you can always leave it up to a little potluck style too. Like, bring a treat, bring your favorite food, bring your favorite dish. So that way everybody's got something that they can enjoy, but have a good variety. Again, the 3 Ps, plant, protein, and portion. If you got something in there, then that's probably going to satisfy most people. All right, one more here. Then my last one, Tony Calisthenics. When I extend my tricep over my head, I feel a pop in my elbow. What could it be? Probably your lack of support in your back. What's going on? You don't have your rear, your shoulders engaged quite as much, or your shoulder stability is a little bit funky in there. So it's something about the tension and the force going through your arm isn't going into your back. So try and keep your shoulders back. See if that helps. Keep your rear delts, your traps, and everything engaged. Triceps work with your back. One of your tricep muscles extends to your scapula. So the tricep muscle is designed to be stabilized with your back. So if your back muscles are not really engaged, that might be helping that sort of thing. All right. Last one. Overrated. How much effort and how much do you work? Terribly overrated. I don't care how much you work. I don't care how much effort you're putting into it. Everyone works their ass off. I don't believe in laziness. Nobody's lazy. One time I was driving down the street with a friend of mine at a parkway, and there was a guy, a panhandler, is often the case on the median. And they were talking about hard work and effort. And I was like, well, think about it this way, my friend. We're sitting here in an air-conditioned car, slipping on, nice, we had like tonic waters and stuff like that, and we're listening to music. We right now are being lazy. Meanwhile, that panhandler out there has been standing out there in the 98-degree heat, taking pot shots at his dignity, begging for whatever people can offer him on the highway. He's outworking you right now. You're being a lazy ass. He's working his ass off. But a lot of people would take the opposite approach. They're like, these lazy bums banging on the street. It's like, you think it's so easy? You go out on the street and beg in 98-degree heat and under the sun and everything. It's hard work to do that. Everything takes work. Everything takes effort. Nobody gets a free pass in the world. So we don't want to rely on the fact that I'm beating myself up. I'm working so hard. Yeah, everybody does. It's nothing special. I'm the hardest worker in the room. That's just your ego talking. You're probably not. A lot of people are always working hard. In fact, usually the person who says that is probably not working as hard as someone else who doesn't have time to say that sort of thing. And your workouts are not effective just because of how much they kick your ass. Your diet is not effective because of how hard it is to stick to. If anything, making things easier is probably in line with being more productive in the long run, because repeatability is the foundation of an effective habit. The harder it is to stick to and repeat. So hard work, efficient, and effort and everything like that. Yeah, be proud of your hard work, but the fact that you are working hard is nothing unique or special, nor does it entitle you to any sort of progress as well. But what is underrated, productivity, my friends. I don't care how hard you work. I care about whether you're getting the job done, whether or not your workout is efficiently telling your body to do something above and beyond what it's used to doing. And productivity can happen with a relatively low amount of work. That's why micro workouts work. You can tell your body a productive stimulus in 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. But you could work out for hours and not even come close to that stimulus if you're just saying, I'm just going to be here to work my ass off. So we want to make sure we're clear on what that productivity is, what your objective of your workout is that I talked about earlier. You want to be, how productive can I be at teaching my body to be faster, stronger, being able to do the thing better. If you can do that, you're going to be a hell of a lot more productive, and it's the productivity that produces the results, not how much work and effort you're putting into it. Let's see, what a couple of last questions here. Matt, do you do crawling exercise like GMB stuff? Yep, all the time. I do that stuff all the time myself, and I give it to all my clients. Crawling is great, like crack filling stuff. It just helps you get a lot of the stuff that classic sagittal up and down again stuff just kind of misses a little bit. Nigel is asking about the T2 ISO trainer. I've got a review on the website, or a review on my YouTube channel. If you just search T2, you'll find it on the review there. I don't use it. They sent it to me. I played around with it for a couple of months. I made the review, and it's still sitting in a box. So I guess that tells you how much I use that sort of thing. But don't, so what I think of it doesn't matter. What matters is what you think of it. So watch the review and check it out for yourself if you want to find out for yourself if it's worth it for you to use as well. All right, friends, I am out. Thank you very much for watching / listening. All your questions, as always. The audio for this will be on the podcast directories in the next 24 hours. I know a lot of people are like saying, where is it on Spotify? I will check into that. It should be there. I don't know what's going on with the tech gods these days. I've been getting emails from people telling me that they're not finding the podcast on the directories, which doesn't make any sense because whenever I look, it's always there. And a couple other people saying, oh, when I click on this ebook for on my website, it doesn't download, which again, I don't understand because I get it. And I tested all my stuff on the major browsers, internet browsers and stuff, and it always worked. So I'm not really sure what to tell you, sort of thing. But I will promise everything will be up and ready to go in the next 24 hours. As always, let me know if you have questions. Again, all the books I referenced are down below in the description on the RDP library, including the new one on suspension calisthenics, which was book 3 in the Grind Style Calisthenics program. Book 4 to round out the series is currently in the works and will be out fairly soon. I'll keep you updated on that. And as always, thank you very much for watching and listening. Talk to you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.